This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We are a show about innovation, creativity, and design, live here every Sunday on BizTalk Radio. You can also sign up and subscribe to it as a podcast. We make that podcast available each Tuesday morning. You can sign up on iTunes or wherever you find your favorite podcast shows. Normally on the show, we have a lot of guests. We bring in leading innovators, inventors, entrepreneurs to talk about how they went from idea and turned that into a game-changing breakthrough product, service, company. Today, we're going to go about a little bit differently. A number of you have sent me emails requesting a show about just more skills, tricks, tips, things that I've used over my career that have been very successful. Having been previously the Chief Technology Officer at Hewlett-Packard and now leading an industry R&D and innovation lab, how is it that we can continuously create new products, new services, new ideas? Don't you eventually kind of run out of ideas? What I'm going to share with you today is it's one of the better known tricks. A lot of books teach it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you my little twist on this tool and trick that you can apply today. You can literally, when you get done listening to today, you can sit down with whatever idea that is in front of you, apply this tool and trick, and I guarantee you will have a much better idea after you spend this time. So, what is this tool? It's called SCAMPER. Now, SCAMPER doesn't really mean anything. It's just a word that allows you to remember a series of steps or processes in order to enhance, improve, create a much better product or service. Now, in many cases, when you're working on an idea, you may actually get to maybe a short list of 2 or 3 if you use a really good ranking process coming out of a brainstorming session, as an example. But you just have that gut feeling that the idea that you have in front of you could be better. There's something that you could add to it, or what we say in the innovation game, you can plus it. You can put something to it, you can change it, you can modify it. There's something there, but you just got this gut feel that there's something else there. And how do you go about finding that thing that will take a really good idea and turn it into a game-changing, just killer innovation? So how do we do that? I use SCAMPER. And I teach this in the workshops, the Innovation Bootcamp and other workshops that I teach. I'm going to give you kind of a compressed version of that here today. You can listen to this over and over again such that you can apply. And I'll have all of the details about this over in the show notes over at killerinnovations.com. So first off, what does SCAMPER stand for? SCAMPER stands for S is substitute, the C is combined, the A is adapt, the M is modify, magnify, minify, the P is put to other uses, the E is eliminate, and the R is to rearrange. So again, substitute, combine, adapt, modify, magnify, minify, put to other uses, eliminate, and rearrange. So first off, let's talk about substitute. Substitute is really thinking about replacing part of the product or process with something else. Take something else, put something else in its place. By looking for replacements, you can come up with new ideas, and you can change things such as places, procedures, people, ideas, and even emotions around a product or a service. So here are some of the questions you should ask yourself when trying to think up substitutes for an idea that you already have. Can I replace or change any of the parts? Can you take a part, remove it, and substitute another part in it, and therefore change that product into something new? Can I replace someone involved? Can you take a person out and put a different person into the role? Can you take a person out, for instance, of customer care, and can you drop technology in to automate the customer care? Can the rules be changed? You may be operating under the rules of your industry, the rules of your company, the rules of your team. Can the rules be changed? Change the rules. Can I use other ingredients or materials? Can you swap out an ingredient or material? Can you put something else in its place? Can I use other processes or procedures? Can you change the process of how you manufacture it? Can you change the process of how you sell it? Can you change the procedure of how you do credit check for your customers before you sell them the product? Can I change its color, its roughness, its sound, or its smell? Smell is an interesting one. Recently, I just picked up some grapes at a local grocery store, and it was labeled as cotton candy grapes. Now, I thought it was a little bit of a marketing ploy, but you open the bag, you smell it, it smells like cotton candy. You put one of these grapes in your mouth, it tastes like cotton candy. And needless to say, they charge a premium for that product. So can you change something, its color, its roughness, its sound, smell, or in this case, even taste? Can I substitute one part for another? Can you take a part of a product or a part of a service and swap it, move it, and substitute it for one for another? And can I change my feelings or attitudes towards it? Can you change the way the customer feels? Can you change the way the customer, really an attitude towards the product, either excitement or reluctance or whatever that is? So think about substitute in a very broad context. It's really about literally taking something out and putting something else in its place. So it's really about replacing a part to the product or service. And again, you can be anything from places to procedures to people to ideas, and even you can do emotions. Or in the example of cotton candy grapes, you can actually do it for taste also. Let's move on to combine. Combine. Think about combining two or more parts of a problem to create a different product or process. Really to about enhancing the synergy that two different things come. So it's kind of a 1 + 1 = 3. A great deal of creative thinking really involves in combining things together. A lot of really great products and services that are out there, you'll see them as the result of combining. So the questions I would ask is, what ideas of parts can be combined? Can I combine or merge it with other objects? What can be combined to maximize the number of uses? Example here is, when I was growing up and I was in Boy Scouts, I had this utility knife that had knives, forks, spoons, a whittling knife, toothpicks, tweezers. If I recall correctly, it probably even had a shovel on it. This thing did everything, and you could use it everything from eating dinner to making kindling to make a fire at night. So in this case, they combined everything to maximize the number of uses. What material could be combined? Could you take materials such as plastic and metal and combine it and make something interesting? Could you take wood and plastic and combine it and make something interesting? And can I combine different talents to improve it? Can you take the talents and abilities? Could you bring somebody in with a completely different talent that you've never used on this product before and bring those together? Or could you combine talents in a unique way to deliver consulting services, or the way you service and support a customer, or the way you sell a customer? So again, combining. Think about combining, 1, 2, 3, 4 elements and put those together. And it's really about creating something that is enhancedly, is enhancedly even a word? You can enhance it that it's 1 + 1 = 3, or 1 + 1 + 1 = 5. That through that synergy of bringing them together, you radically or significantly improve the overall quality of the product. And again, combining is one of the more common ones that we see. It comes pretty naturally in the innovation game. The most common way that I see it is by combining, for instance, products and services. I'll sell you the product, and I'm going to combine a set of services around it, like white glove services, such that you buy a product, it gets delivered to your house, the person comes in, they uncrate it, they set it up, they make sure it all works, they take all the packing material with them. That's an idea of combining a product, selling me, let's say, a TV, and then combining that with white glove services such that it's hassle-free, you know it's going to work, you don't have to deal with lifting something out of a box, and it just naturally comes together. So again, so far we've talked about substitute and combine. And we're going to talk through the rest of this show, walking through SCAMPER. And at the end, I'm going to walk through an example of SCAMPER being applied to an everyday object that we all use on a regular basis. So stay right there. We're going to be right back after this commercial break. Keep in mind that everything I talk about, I will have over in the show notes over at killerinnovations.com. You'll be able to download this information, including the questions around each of the elements of SCAMPER, so that you can take that and apply it to an idea that you have that you're working on right now. And this is the tool, the trick that will actually allow you to significantly enhance that product that you're working or that service that you're working on right now. So stay right there. We're going to be right back after this commercial break. You're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome back to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We are talking today about a tool or trick that I use on a regular basis called SCAMPER. In the first segment, we covered substitute and combine. Let's move on. Let's talk about adapt. What do I mean by adapt? Think about adapting really an existing idea to solve your problem. So take maybe an idea that's already in your idea notebook and apply it to a completely different problem. Bear in mind that many new ideas or inventions are borrowed to some degree. There's always some form of inspiration. There's always something that has inspired us in the past that now is causing us to apply something in a very unique and different way. So what are some of the questions you can use to kind of get the juices going when you're thinking about adapt? These questions include: which parts of the product or process could be changed to suit a special condition or purpose? So what was it that you would change that could actually be applied to a completely different problem? Does the past offer any lessons with similar ideas? So can you look at maybe a problem that was solved maybe decades ago or multiple decades ago and look at how it's going to be applied today? Could I copy, borrow, or even steal inspirations? Now, there's a fine line between inspiration and stealing. And in fact, you can go back. I've written about this over in the blog over at philmckinney.com. I've also talked about it here on this show about where do you draw the line between inspiration and stealing. And there's actually a book out there, All Great Creatives Ultimately Steal. And stealing for me really is about an idea that really just gives you that immediate answer. And to you, it almost seems obvious, but nobody else previously has thought about it. So what can you copy, borrow, or steal from some other industry, companies, and doing something completely different? Are there things that you can bring across? Now, the best example of this is Ford Motor Company. When Henry Ford visited Chicago, he visited a meatpacking facility. And the meatpacking facilities are very efficient. They stun the cow, and as they are butchering the meat, the cow actually moves down the line, and a butcher stands there, and he just makes one kind of a cut to cut off, whatever part of the animal they want. And then the cow moves to the next butcher, and he makes a cut, and then moves to the third butcher, and he makes a cut. That was the inspiration for Henry Ford to create the assembly line. So he went back and created the assembly line. That was the innovation for Henry Ford. He did not invent the automobile. There were people before him who had created automobiles. What Henry Ford did is he borrowed, stealed, adapted the process of butchering animals in the Chicago meatpacking district and applied it to how do you not disassemble a car, but can you reverse that process and actually put the animal together or put the car together, but using the same process of the car moving down the line and every person on the line, instead of taking away in a butcher, adding a part in the case of an auto assembly line. So again, that's a great example of adapting something or copying something from another industry and applying it to you. Some other questions include: whom could I emulate? Are there other industries, companies, people who you really think are out there just doing great stuff? What can you emulate? What ideas could I incorporate? What other ideas do you have in your idea notebook that you could incorporate that would adapt the product or service that you're thinking about. What different contexts can I put my concept in? Your product may be aimed at one product in the context of a customer in this use case, but could it be applied to a completely different use case? And then what ideas outside my field could I incorporate? Again, the Henry Ford, using the ideas of what happens in the meatpacking facility being applied to the assembly line. So that's adapt. The other one is modify, magnify, or minify. This is thinking about the changes, parts of the current situation and to distort it in an unusual way. Magnify, make it much larger. Minify, make it very, very small. Modify, can you twist, contort it in some way? So the questions you can ask yourself are, how it could be made larger, stronger, thicker, smaller, lighter, shorter? So think about it in the context of dimensions of characteristics that you would typically think of a product. Can I change the shape or give it a new twist? Such as straws. And it is really the word twist that caused me to think of this. The old days was just a straight straw. Then you had the straw that kind of has that little crinkle in the middle that allows you to bend the straw. And now you have all these crazy, twirly, twisty straws that all the kids like to drink from. So can you just take the basic idea of a straw and apply it in a unique and different way? What can be exaggerated or overstated? What is it that you could really take and do something that's totally transformative? And the other is can I increase its frequency? Can it be a product or a service that happens more frequently? So therefore it's shorter time or shorter gaps between. Or can I make the product or service elongated where it only happens once a year or once every 2 years? If someone could figure out how to take the experience of going to a dentist and stretching it out so that I only had to go once every 2 years, that's a product or service I would probably be pretty excited about. So again, adapt. Think about adapting an existing idea to solve your problem. Just keep in mind that all new ideas, there's very rarely that someone comes up with a new idea just out of thin air. We all have some inspiration. So the key on adapt is be inspired and adapt it to the problem or service that you're trying to create. And then in modify, magnify, minify, it's really about contorting some form of dimension or characteristic. So it could be, make it longer, make it thicker, make it smaller, make it lighter, make it stronger. Think about it in that context. What is it that you can modify, magnify, make it really big, minify, make it really, really small, and apply that to your approach. So again, adapt and modify, magnify, minify. So far we've covered substitute, combine, adapt, modify, magnify, minify. Next up, we'll walk into put to other uses, eliminate, rearrange, and substitute, and complete the entire discussion here about SCAMPER. So we're going to take another quick commercial break here. Before we hop off to the commercials, just would ask one quick favor. Can you hop over to iTunes, give the show a rating, and let us know what you think? What would you like to hear in upcoming shows? And what would be the most help for you in taking that idea or that thing that's rattling around your head, turn it into something real, and make that a success? Whether that be your career success, whether that be your business success, or something that's totally transformative that helps others, such as medical devices. We just had a great discussion 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago on a 16-year-old kid inventing a medical device, and now he's open sourcing it and giving it away for free. So again, give us a rating or give us feedback. Let us know what you think of the show. We watch those, and we take all that input and appreciate it. So stay right there. We're going to hop off to this quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll pick up the rest of the discussion on SCAMPER. You're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome back to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We are talking today about SCAMPER, a tool that I use quite regularly in my brainstorming sessions and when I'm developing new products and services, or when I'm advising, coaching, mentoring others who are working on new products and services. It's a phenomenal tool. It's really easy to use, and we're going to finish up the rest of SCAMPER and then actually get into a real-life example. It's actually a fun little example about how to apply SCAMPER to an everyday product that we all use regularly. So picking up where we left off, we're at the P in SCAMPER. So P stands for put to other uses. Now, think of how you might be able to put your current idea to other uses, or think of the way you could reuse from somewhere else in order to solve your problem. Many times an idea only becomes great when applied differently than when you first imagined it. You may think about it like, oh my gosh, I've got this figured out. I know exactly how this is going to solve the problem. You build that product, you put it in the customer's hands, it isn't used that way at all. So again, it's really about thinking about how do I put it to other uses? What else could it be used for? Now, this is notoriously from, what we refer to in the tech world as hacking. I may have a product that was designed for A, I'm going to hack it, I'm going to apply it for purpose B. There's a site out there called, I think it's IKEA Hacks. It's actually I wrote about it in my book, and now I can't even remember the name of the domain. I'll find it and I'll put it in the show notes. But in the case of the IKEA hackers, these are people who go out and buy IKEA products, bookshelves and tables, etc., and they hack them, and they put them to completely different uses that were just never intended for from IKEA. Best example of that is a young couple has twins, and they live in a very small apartment, and they didn't want to have kind of the traditional 2 high chairs to feed them. So they bought an IKEA table, then they literally cut holes in the IKEA table and put baby car seats into it. So they had each of the twins sitting in their car seats, sitting in these holes that locked them in. And then the parents could sit there and eat with them and feed them, etc. And that was a pretty little ingenious hack. And now there's this whole website of people posting how they buy IKEA and hack it and put it to a completely different use. Now, in some cases, you may go out and you actually talk to customers. Find out how people, if you have an existing product or service, find out how people are using it in ways that you just never intended it to be used. That's putting it to an alternative use, and it may open up an entirely new market. So ask yourself, what else can it be used for? Can it be used by people other than those it was originally intended for? And are there possible uses of it if it's modified? Could you modify it, tweak it, change it, and make it available to others? So let's move on to eliminate, the E. Think of what might happen if you eliminated parts of the ideas. If you could take and drop off something that was originally part of the original idea, could you simplify? Could you reduce? Could you eliminate the components? And through repeated trimming of the ideas, of the objects, the process, the procedures, you can gradually narrow your challenge down to that part or function that is most important. You can get it down to where it really becomes the core essence, the core element of what it is that you're trying to create as far as the product or service. So in this case, you want to ask yourself, how can I simplify it? Do I have a lot of things hanging on around it that just are not of interest or of value? What parts can be removed without altering its function? Now, in my case, when I was the Chief Technology Officer at Hewlett-Packard, we got into a long, many-year discussion about eliminating what used to be the RGB connector on the sides of laptops. So these were the connectors that were needed in order to connect to older projectors. And in many cases today, they are still on there. But, we've moved way beyond that old technology, but it's hard to get people to let go, to eliminate this stuff. It could be eliminated. If we eliminated it, it actually allows you to get a thinner laptop. It actually allows you to get a lighter laptop. It allows you to simplify the internals, easier to manufacture, reduce the cost, all kinds of benefits. But I'll tell you, getting people, particularly on an existing product or service, to be willing to eliminate is very, very hard. So what's non-essential or unnecessary? I would argue the RGB connector is no longer essential or critical on laptop devices. Can the rules be eliminated? Can you just wipe out entire rules? Now, you're going to hear a theme here about rules. I'm a kind of an anti-rule person. And I hate policies and procedures that have been around for decades and nobody challenges them. So in this case, eliminate the rules, eliminate those assumptions, eliminate the quote, the way it's always been done. And the other question is what feature can I omit? Now, we tend to think about features because one customer asks us for something. Again, going back to my years at HP, I was in a product review meeting one time. The engineers were presenting this product and they were listing this long list of features. And there was a feature in there that I just couldn't figure out who would want it. So I interrupted and I asked the team, I said, okay, you've got this feature. What customer segment, what persona, what avatar of a customer asked for that product or feature? And you know what the answer was? The answer was, oh, no, we didn't hear from a customer. We would want this feature in it, so we added it. And I went, great. You've now created a product that which only HP engineers would ever be able to use. So what feature can I omit? Be careful of that feature creep. Okay. The last one is rearrange or reverse. Think about what you could do if part of your problem, product, or process worked in reverse or were done in a completely different order. Questions you can ask yourself is, can I interchange components? Meaning, can I swap things out? Are there other patterns, layouts, or sequences I can use? Should I turn it around, up instead of down, down instead of up? What if I considered it backwards? If you looked at the entire problem space, could you go about the product or solution completely backwards? And what if I try to do the exact opposite of what I originally intended? Rather than, the example I use here is in the zoo. The one thing that people, that's a challenge in the zoo is to get rid of the animal byproduct after they go to the bathroom, right? And in many cases, there was a process of how do I, eliminate it? How do I get rid of it? How do I dispose of it? But in this case, rather than thinking about disposing, reverse it and say, what if I kept it? What if I kept that handy? Well, what they do is they keep it handy, they put it in buckets, and they charge you $5, and you actually carry that out the front gate in order to fertilize your flowers and your vegetables. So rather than the one direction, which was always, get rid of it, dispose of it, push it one direction. If you thought about that problem in reverse and said, instead of getting rid of it, the reverse is keep it. Now, what would you do if you kept it? You're going to have this big mound and pile of this stuff all over the place. Bucket it up and then turn around and actually sell it. So you actually get visitors to the zoo to actually carry it out the front gate. And by the way, they pay you for the privilege. So that would be an example of a reverse. So again, we talked about put to other uses, which is the P. E is eliminate, and R is to rearrange. So real quick, in SCAMPER, we talked about substitute, combine, adapt, modify, magnify, minify, put to other uses, eliminate, and rearrange or reverse. So we've covered all of SCAMPER. What we're going to do in the next segment after this quick commercial break is I'm going to walk you through an example of SCAMPER on a product that we actually all use on a regular basis. And we used a lot of them when we were in school. So stay right there. We're going to continue on, and I'm going to give you a real world application so you kind of understand what it is I'm talking about. So it's not this kind of just list of questions, but something that you can actually hopefully apply to an idea, product or service, problem space that you're actually thinking about today. This is one of those tools you can apply immediately after we get done with the show here. And I'm pretty confident that if you use the SCAMPER method, you're actually going to come up with a greatly enhanced idea than where you started from. So SCAMPER is one of those tools that you just want to always keep handy and apply. So we're going to take this quick commercial break and pick up right where we left off, go through that example. So stay right there, You're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome back to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. Picking up where we've been talking on this show about SCAMPER as a tool or a trick that I use quite regularly and one that I teach in all of my workshops. So just to remind you, SCAMPER stands for S for substitute, C for combine, A for adapt, M is for modify, magnify, minify, P is put to other uses, E is eliminate, and R is rearrange. Now, I'm going to have all this information over on the show notes, including all the questions that I've covered so far in the show. So hop on over to killerinnovations.com, grab the show notes, print those out, and you can apply this to any activities you're doing around new ideas, products, services, etc. So as promised, I'm going to walk through SCAMPER on a real-world object. This is an object we've all used before in our lives, so this is something that will be completely familiar to you, and that object is a pencil. So something as simple as a pencil, how would you apply SCAMPER to? So first up is what? Substitute, the S, right? So you're looking for things that you can replace. Now, back when the original pencil was created, it was just a solid piece of wood. You had your point, and you wrote with it. Well, one way to substitute is to take that end off of the pencil and replace it with an eraser. So you're substituting the end of the pencil with an eraser, and you ended up with a greatly enhanced product. It used to be you'd have to have a pencil on one hand, and you had a big rubbery eraser on the other hand. Put the eraser at the end of the pencil, and it's right there with it. So that's an example of substitute. Now, combine. Combine is really taking two or more parts to the problem and combining them up. So it's 1 + 1 = 3. Now, in this case, the problem that a pencil's trying to solve is what? To write down things, to keep track of information, to put information in a journal. It's basically a means of you to use your hand and write down information that you can recall later. So in this case, one way to combine is you could have a pencil on one end and a pen on another end. So literally you have both a pencil and a pen all in one object. That's an example of combine. Now, adapt. Now, adapting is about taking the existing idea and, doing something differently with it. Now, the one thing that you find with a pencil, what's the other object you have to have with a pencil? And that is a sharpener. Now, those twist sharpeners where you stick the pencil in and you twist it and you get a nice smooth point, that's great. You take your shavings, you put them in the trash can, off you go. The way to adapt even just the sharpening process is to pull out a pocket knife and literally whittle or chisel a point into the end of the pencil. My grandfather was always notorious for this. He never wanted to use a sharpener. If a pencil needed sharpened, out came his little pocket knife and he whittled a point to it. So that's really an adapt. It's the same. It solves the same function, but you go about it in a completely different way. The other is modify, magnify, or minify. Well, you can think about a pencil as being, I have very, very large pencils. I have pencils that are flat and thin, which are used by carpenters so that you can run the pencil down the edge of a ruler and it stays nice and even. Or you can have a normal pencil, or you can have an extra small pencil that you would keep with attached to your moleskin idea notebook so that you can write ideas, right? So modify, magnify, minify, large pencils, flat pencils, round pencils, small pencils. The other is put to other uses. So what would be some of the other ways of really using it as put to other uses? The one idea that's come up when I've asked this question in workshops is someone came up with this idea of really taking a pencil, cutting off, making it flat, drilling a hole in the wall, sticking it in the wall, and it turns into a way to actually hang a sign on a door or just hanging something on the wall. It has a kind of a unique, novel look to it. It's interesting. I'm not sure people want to buy it that way, but hey, it's one idea of how you could use a pencil in a completely different use. The other is eliminate. What would you eliminate from a pencil? Well, you could eliminate the wood. You could eliminate the eraser. What do you have? You just have the lead that comes down the middle of the pencil. Well, what would you do with the lead? Well, you would create a mechanical pencil. So basically, you can think about a mechanical pencil, which was based on this idea of eliminate the wood, eliminate the eraser. What do you have left? You've got lead. Now you're going to create a mechanical pencil. The other is rearrange, reverse the whole thing. In this case, you could actually take a pencil and really interchange those components and use them in completely different ways, right? So for instance, you could take a pencil and create holes, use it as a poker to poke holes in, let's say, styrofoam that you would stick, flowers or other things in it that would stick out of it. So you're not using it as a pencil, you're using it, and it's causing a reverse because when you stick it in, you remove it, the image of the pencil's still there, and you're using it for a completely different purpose. So that's one idea to think about, rearrange or reverse. And last is substitute. What would you do to be this this whole substitute, which is thinking about it in a completely different way from that standpoint of this whole product. Substitute, though, is a little bit challenging, right? It's about how you're placing part of the problem, the product, or the service. You could argue that the eraser idea, which I had for a combine, you could also do that with a substitute. You could create different kinds of erasers, different kinds of lead, colors of lead. You could not use wood. You could use other kinds of materials. So again, this is just an example of SCAMPER being used for a pencil as an example. So again, substitute, combine, adapt, modify, magnify, minify, put to other uses, eliminate, rearrange, reverse. That is SCAMPER. So go over, check out the show notes. I'll have all the information over there at killerinnovations.com. Also, one quick favor, hop on over to iTunes, give us a vote, let other people know about the show, pay it forward. That's all we ask. We've done this show now for 12 years, free of charge. Funded all internally to help make this information available to all of you. Hope you enjoy it. So we'll talk to you next week. This is Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network.
Autism. 1 out of every 68 children in America are impacted across every race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic group. If you aren't directly affected, someone you know is. Today's world doesn't support those on the autism spectrum. It needs hacking for us to truly welcome those who think and create differently than ourselves. We're Hacking Autism, a nonprofit charity with a mission to hack therapy, technologies, and career opportunities that improve the personal and professional lives of people on the autism spectrum. We believe that everyone can play a role in supporting those on the autism spectrum so that they can show their unique talents and abilities in this fast-paced world. You aren't powerless in this fight. Use your gifts and talents to make a positive impact. Join us in making a difference. Go to hackingautism.org to learn more.
Carpenters have their hammers and saws, chefs have their outfitted kitchens, and musicians have their instruments. A craftsman's ability to do their job is dependent on having the right tools. So where does an innovator, someone who takes an idea and makes it real, find the right tools to do their job. Outfit your innovator's garage by visiting innovation.tools. Innovation.tools is an online store created by innovators for innovators. It's where you will find tested and proven tools to help you create that next great product or service. These tools include books, audio training, video training, brainstorming how-tos, and much, much more. And for a limited time, listeners of Killer Innovations will get 25% off on your first order by using the discount code RADIO at checkout. And 100% of our profits from your purchases will be donated to charity. So go to innovation.tools and create that next great innovation.
Rwanda is a shining example of how the global community can come together and rebuild a country after a devastating genocide. But there is still more that needs to be done. In the rural villages, students are crowded into schools with no electricity, no running water, no internet access, and limited sanitation. Will these kids be ready to continue the rebuilding of Rwanda, or will they be dependent upon others? Through education and employment, boys and girls have an equally promising future that can transform their struggling communities. For $20 a month, a child can be educated and a community strengthened. By supporting Pioneer Education Africa, a 501c3 charity, you partner with others to provide education that will prepare a generation to take on the task of self-reliance. 100% of the proceeds received go directly to the education of the children. Visit pioneereducationafrica.com to find out more.